1 week after my TV Ontario team and I got back from Pecos, New Mexico to TV Ontario, a curious little package arrived with lots of sort of wooden fibers in it, and there was a bottle of salad dressing packed carefully in it, and this letter. I'll read it to you. Here is the recipe, Elwy, for Mrs. Yost to try. Mrs. Yost was not with me on that trip, but I talked a good deal about her to the lady who wrote this. I'm also sending a bottle of store-bought dressing for comparison purposes. Maybe. But of course, homemade is best. It was a joy having you and the TV Ontario group down here. Please give my love to Deborah, that's Deborah Cheeseman, our PA, and the boys, the cameraman and sound man. Each day since you left has been gloriously sunny. Too bad it poured all Friday, but we had fun anyway, and it is signed, Greer. What a thoughtful lady. I just commented during lunch that the salad dressing was lovely, and look what happened. A week later, she sends me salad dressing. A thoughtful lady. Now meet that thoughtful lady as I met her.
First question I want to start off isn't really with Coleman. I want to save that for a little bit. But what are your memories of working with Ernest Matre, who I believe was trained by Reinhardt? He coached you, I think, in some of those delicious dancing sequences.
Yes. Oh, charming man. I'm so glad you asked about him, because I haven't really thought of him for quite a while. It was a very pleasant contact, especially as I was one of the few people in Hollywood who had seen the Ernest Matre ballet in London. I'd seen them perform, and his wife was a delightful elf. She was the star of the ballet. And they were, I don't know, they were dance instructors or something, I think had a studio in Hollywood, but would come to a studio for a special assignment, as they had in our picture. And he taught us our rather funny little musical comedy, Highland Fling. But nobody taught me the Harry Lauder accent. I remembered that myself from childhood, when all my Garson uncles at Christmas time, they would sing songs around the piano at the family party. And of course, Harry Lauder, Sir Harry Lauder, was a great favourite. And I learned most of the words of all the songs and had a great time with him, you know. And apparently Harry Lauder himself was delighted. He says, "You must see a wee lassie. She does me in a picture, and she does an impression of me better than I do myself." Which I think was rather nice.
Well, that's delicious.
He was still alive at that time, yes.
You should do the rest of the interview now.
In braid Scots would be kind of fun.
Well, you get that honesty, don't you, in your background, though, from County Down.
Yes.
Was it your maternal grandfather?
My mother was a North of Ireland Greer, and they were a sept of the Clan MacGregor. At the time that there were prescribed clans after the union of the thrones of England and Scotland, some of the clans were very rambunctious, did not wish to be governed by the Sassenachs. And the MacGregors distinguished themselves in various rather rowdy ways and were rather severely prosecuted for that reason. They were on the list of proscribed clans, and some of them got tired of that and went abroad and settled in Ireland. So I'm a MacGregor on that side, aye.
MacGregor?
MacGregor, Scots for hay. And on my father's side, the Garsons go back to 1155 in Orkney Islands. They came over with an early Viking settlement.
Oh,
and my
Scandinavian.
Yes. My grandfather Garson, Peter Garson, was the first of the Garsons, I believe, ever to leave the islands. He'd been widowed, and with the birth of the 8th child, I believe, all red-headed. He was red-headed, his beautiful wife was red-headed, and all the sons and daughters were red-headed. He brought them to London for better educational opportunities. He gave each of them, he was a simple man with no great means, and he gave each of them 2 years of college. The rest they were supposed to provide for themselves if they really wanted to. That was pretty good in that generation, to give the girls also a college education.
But that red hair, the Titian.
That helped them all.
You really, you know.
I come by it honestly. I had the Garson brooch with the 8 little locks of hair around it, which was rather sweet.
Well, you were doing it, you look gorgeous, may I say, in those dancing sequences. Stunning, ma'am, stunning.
Well, it was great fun. We enjoyed it very much.
Well, I heard around that time they used to lunch, and I couldn't believe this when I read it, hot sauerkraut juice.
Never tasted it.
Now I'll show you the title of the book later. I just don't have it on my possession now. Greer Garson used to lunch on hot sauerkraut juice when she was making that picture.
Excuse me, all you people
it sounded
who like
like a dieting procedure. You obviously had no problem.
In my life.
You had no problems in that regard.
No.
Somebody
I
has
think
that
my favorite lunch was 5 small slices of canned tongue, a watercress salad, baby tomato, little cherry tomatoes, and an apple or a banana or something like that.
Well, that's nonsense then. I shall write that, ma'am.
Please do.
I
don't like sauerkraut juice, and I wouldn't wish to advertise it in any way.
No. Now, you won the Picture Goer Gold Medal for the 3rd consecutive year with this, didn't you? Because you got it for Blossoms, Miniver, and now Harvest. You must have been very proud of that.
Well, I was very happy. That's an audience award, you know. That's a Gallup poll. And at the same time, the same thing went on in England for 3 years running. Only things were so difficult over there that they didn't strike a beautiful medal each year. They gave me a combined award for 3 years, a beautiful bowl, Rose Bowl, which I cherish very highly. And those things really mean a lot.
I'll tell you something interesting I've observed, and I hope you don't mind my commenting. I've looked far and wide since we've been here this gorgeous day at Pecos and your gorgeous ranch in New Mexico, and I haven't seen signs of the Oscar that you got.
No, I don't think there's
I bet
any...
you keep it away somewhere.
Well, it's certainly not here. There's no symbol of my connection with show business here. This is country living, country life. Forked Lightning Ranch is untouched by any Hollywood glitz.
It's rare in this profession, Miss Garson.
Well, maybe it is.
Rare
It isn't that I appreciate the lovely symbols that were given to me from time to time, because most of them were real symbols of affection. And that's wonderful, wonderful to have. Actors are so lucky. Just think, instead of being in show business, we might all have been, chartered accountants struggling with people's income tax. We might have been auditors or collectors, rent collectors. We might have been orthodontists or something like that, and working with the rather serious and sad and part of life. Instead of that, we are the laughter makers, and we celebrate the joy of life and spread it around, and that's wonderful, and we enjoy it very much.
Well, you were starting out in that direction, I think, with Lever Brothers, weren't you?
That was the advertising service.
Yes.
A nice clean business, of course, being Lever Brothers.
Thank God it didn't go that way.
Well, it was a very interesting job, and I enjoyed it. But of course, I was just really holding my breath and waiting. I was ready, and I had worked since childhood. This was my dream, to get into the theatre. And a chance introduction led to an opportunity at Birmingham Repertory.
And where you were.
Where off I went.
Did you ever meet James Hilton, who wrote? I've never met him.
Yes, I did.
What sort of man wrote?
Oh, a charming man.
Harvest?
Quiet, English, you know, very cool and controlled, with a shy sort of sense of humour. Quiet man, charming. I liked his books.
Wonderful
of course,
books.
I liked Random Harvest immensely, and he was very well pleased with the script and the picture. And may I say that seeing you like the picture too, I think.
Oh, crazy
and I
about
have
it.
a great soft spot for it.
Crazy about it.
Anytime I see it, I dissolve in tears at the end.
Oh, I know.
Because I think Ronald Colman is such a romantic actor. And he doesn't need cloaks and swords and horses and Bengal lancers and that kind of thing to be romantic. He just is a wonderfully romantic person.
In real life too?
Voice. Oh, yes,
Off the
I
set
think
was
so.
this...
Shy. Well, he didn't cut a dashing figure. He was rather retiring and went and rested in his dressing room between takes. But he was just a charming host at home, and he and his very lively, delightful wife, Benita Coleman, who Benita Coleman had been Benita Hume professionally on the West End stage, a very delightful light comedian. She was a very fine hostess. And they came out here for one memorable weekend. David Selznick and Jennifer Jones, who were married at that time, they came out too. And Bill Fry, who you might or might not have heard of, but he was the director of the Coleman's radio show, Halls of Ivy, and then when they segued into television, he directed the television show.
Oh.
And he also directed General Electric Theatre, which was a repertory kind of playhouse on the air.
the golden era of television.
Beautiful. And the host there was an actor called Ronald Reagan. And Ronnie used to be rather cross with Bill, because Bill said, I'm afraid I never gave him the best parts. And Ronald was always saying, when are you going to give me one of the good parts? You know? But he was always a delightful host, if you remember, introducing the series. But getting back to Random Harvest, getting back to Ronald Coleman, on the weekend out here, he proved to be a delightful house guest. He was full of fun, and we were going to go down to the village. We had organized a square dancing club down there, and there's a big hall down in the village. We went down and sat on bales of hay and stomped out, you know, Cotton-Eyed Joe and the Texas Star and Put Your Little Foot and all those. And I said, our caller, disaster, our caller is sick and can't come. What are we going to do for a caller? And a quiet voice from the fireside said, well, I've had little experience in calling square dancers. Perhaps I could help. And it was Ronald. Can you imagine him calling, you know, twirl that little girl to the door, Dance your partner across the floor, do-si-do and do-si-do again. You know, this lovely cultured English accent, calling the square dances. He was a big success. And he was a big success as an amateur magician. He tied us up with a lot of ropes, marvelous rope tricks, tied them up in complicated knots, tied us all in bunches, and then forgot how to undo the knots so we couldn't get free. So it was a very entertaining weekend.